3 cops showed up at my door demanding the keys to my Porsche, badges flashing, papers in hand, tow truck idling in the street. My neighbors watched as if I was finally getting what I deserved, except those cops weren't real and they didn't know I was a U.S. Marshal. That was the day everything Sandra had been plotting collapsed right in front of her. When I first moved into Maplewood Estates, I thought I was buying peace. After 2 decades chasing fugitives across state lines, my knees were shot, my marriage barely hanging on, and I just wanted a quiet neighborhood where people waved while walking their dogs. The house was modest, the lawn tidy, and my midnight blue Porsche 911 fit neatly in the driveway. For about 48 hours, it felt normal. Then Sandra Collins showed up, HOA president, mid-50s, hair sprayed into immobility, clipboard clutched like a weapon. She smiled the kind of smile that makes you instinctively pat your pockets just to be sure nothing's missing. "Welcome to Maplewood," she said in a tone that made it clear I wasn't. She sized me up, asked what I did for a living, her eyes darting between my boots and the government plate frame I hadn't bothered to remove. I told her I worked from home, which was true enough. Her smile tightened and she muttered something about maintaining economic standards. Then she spent 10 minutes rattling off rules about mailbox height, lawn length, and the absurd clause about economic disparity. According to Sandra, owning something too nice could make neighbors feel inadequate. First offense, $500. I should have slammed the door right then, but I was tired unpacking and I figured this was just small-town HOA nonsense. 72 hours later, there it was, my first violation notice. $500 because my car made the neighborhood look unrealistic. I laughed, shoved it in my pocket like evidence, and told myself to stay calm. Calm is a tool, but I could already see neighbors peeking through blinds waiting for me to snap. I realized Sandra wasn't just nitpicking, she was setting an example. Her message was clear: stand out and you'll regret it. It didn't stop there. Sandra worked. The local sheriff's office got Detective Brooks to swing by under the guise of concerns about suspicious activity. Middle-aged board smelled like stale coffee. He asked about my income, my work schedule, whether my Porsche was legit. I could see him glancing toward Sandra's house like she was coaching him through an earpiece. I let him ramble, nodded politely, gave vague answers. He didn't know I was recording every word. He left my porch and parked in Sandra's driveway for 20 minutes. That night my tires were slashed clean, precise cuts. Not kids. A message, and it worked. The harassment snowballed. Noise complaints about my garage door, reports to the post office about suspicious packages. Even neighbors I thought might be friendly started crossing the street to avoid me. Mrs. Patterson, who baked me cookies when I moved in, stopped making eye contact. The young couple with the golden retriever walked on the other side of the block. It was like Sandra's paranoia was contagious and I was patient zero. The worst part wasn't the fines or the vandalism, it was my daughter. Elena drove in one afternoon, spotted Sandra photographing her car, and her face fell. "Dad, people are talking. They say you've got legal problems. My colleagues heard rumors before I even mentioned your name. Why don't you just follow the rules? Sell the car, keep your head down. You're 62. Dad, isn't it time to stop making waves?" Hearing that from my own kid, someone I'd spent 20 years protecting from fugitives and gangsters, was like being gutted. For the first time I sat in my office staring at files I couldn't focus on, wondering if maybe she was right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I should just give in, repaint the garage, sell the Porsche, disappear into quiet compliance. That night was the lowest point. Isolation closed in my cover, glitching my network, cutting off my family, ashamed. I almost folded. Almost. Because then I remembered what I've told every rookie I've ever trained: bullies only win if you let them. Sandra wasn't just being nosy. She was building a campaign of intimidation, and intimidation in my line of work is evidence. From that moment, the game changed. I installed extra recorders, documented every move, and let Sandra believe I was cornered. Meanwhile, I was feeding evidence up the chain. She thought she was tightening the noose. Really, she was tying her own rope. The breaking point came at a Thursday HOA meeting. 37 neighbors in folding chairs, Sandra up front like a prosecutor with photos, notes, evidence. She painted me as a criminal mastermind, suspicious work hours, shady packages, antisocial behavior. Her words were slippery, suggests, indicates, appears. The vote went her way, of course. 29 hands in favor, 4 abstaining, 4 against. Even people who knew better stayed quiet. Fear had them by the throat. I walked out, knowing I was officially branded the neighborhood pariah. But what Sandra didn't know was that I'd already uncovered her final move. She'd hired a team of professional impersonators actors who specialized in corporate security role play to dress as cops, forge warrants, and tow my Porsche in front of everyone. It was brilliant in a way, terrifyingly illegal, but brilliant. And it was exactly what I needed. Because impersonating federal officers, that's not HOA drama anymore. That's prison time. So I prepared, marked my tires with tape set, hidden cameras coordinated with my real team. Let Sandra think she'd won. Let her watch from behind her curtains, smug as ever, while she was really setting up the sting that would end her reign. The next afternoon, right on cue, the show began. 3 men in spotless uniforms, badges, gleaming radio chatter that sounded almost real. A car with government plates that would have fooled anyone but me. They approached with the confidence of people who'd rehearsed this scene because they had. Sandra was in her window practically vibrating. Neighbors lined their blinds like it was a damn parade. The lead fake cop announced himself as Officer Johnson, Federal Tax Enforcement Division. He waved forged paperwork and demanded the keys to my Porsche. I let my voice tremble. Officers, there must be some mistake. Can I see your supervisor's number? They pushed harder, threatened obstruction, arrest, humiliation. One even dropped the act and muttered, "Just give us the keys, man." It was textbook intimidation enough to fool anyone, but not me. When Johnson reached for my arm, muscle memory took over. I caught his wrist firm, unmistakable. His eyes flickered with the realization that he'd made a serious mistake. The other 2 shifted nervously. And that's when I let the mask drop. My voice changed. Calm, measured, absolute. Deputy U.S. Marshal Marcus Torres, badge number 47291. You're under arrest for impersonating federal officers, conspiracy, and intimidation. I pulled out my real badge, held it high. Neighbors gasped. The color drained from those fake cops' faces. Across the street, Sandra's smug grin collapsed into panic. And then the cavalry rolled in unmarked SUVs, real agents in tactical gear flooding the block. In 3 minutes flat, those imposters were zip-tied on my driveway, evidence-bagged, case sealed. Sandra burst out of her house shrieking, "What are you doing? They're police officers." Agent Mitchell from the Bureau didn't even flinch. She held up her own badge and read Sandra her rights, conspiracy, witness, intimidation, federal assault. The cuffs clicked shut on Sandra's wrists, and the metallic snap echoed through Maplewood louder than any gavel. My neighbors, the same ones who'd avoided me for months, stood frozen in their yards, finally seeing their queen bee for what she was, a criminal. Mrs. Patterson wept. Rodriguez, the veteran, lowered his head in shame. The young couple clutched each other, realizing they'd almost been accessories to a federal crime. Sandra, the woman who measured mailbox heights and photographed trash cans, was shoved into the back of a federal vehicle. And I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The law had spoken louder than I ever could. Bullies always think they're untouchable until the day they pick the wrong target.